The way we consume and share news today, it is largely rooted in social media outlets. A reason why I decided it is important to look at what's being discussed online. From the hottest issues to trends for our daily social media minute, we're joined by Erica. Good morning.
Good morning.
You know, that's the only intro that survived all of our reshuffles.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I wrote it. Do you like it?
I do.
And at this point, I should have memorized it, but I can't. It makes me a little uneasy if I don't have it in front of me.
I know exactly what you mean.
Thanks for joining us, Erica. You look beautiful in green.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Have you guys noticed? In this lighting, you can't tell, but her face mask matches her shirt.
Oh, yeah. That was completely unintentional, by the way, but thanks for noticing.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Now you just gravitate towards matching in colors? All right. Let's jump into our social media minute portion as we teased a little bit earlier. So the cabinet in the country passed a brand new bill to allow single people to adopt. It's a stark contrast to what was allowed before and maybe a big step forward into the future.
That's right. The number of one-person households in Korea is increasing sharply, and the cabinet has approved bills to allow single people to adopt children in the future.
So the current Civil Act and the Family Litigation Act stipulates that only married couples can legally adopt.
Yes, but under the revisions, single people will be able to adopt if they are 25 years old or older and meet the requirements to sufficiently guarantee the welfare of the children they adopt.
I suppose we don't have the details of what that exactly implies yet, but you can probably imagine a stable job, so a stable income and things like that.
Yeah.
Of course, the Ministry of Justice will need to submit the amendments to the National Assembly for that final approval.
Yes, and the amendments will be submitted tomorrow on Friday. The Justice Ministry says it has also strengthened qualification reviews of would-be adoptive parents. The revisions call on the family court to consider parenting time and the post-adoption environment when reviewing applications, in addition to their capacity and conditions to raise a child. In addition, they call it them investigators, but they will be sent to families applying for adoption to, look into child rearing conditions and the environment of the home.
All right.
Yeah.
This change in the legal system reflects clearly a rapid increase in the proportion of single-person households and maybe even a fundamental shift in the notion of what constitutes a nuclear family in South Korea.
Yes. In fact, the single-member family has become the most common form of family, I guess, arrangement in the country.
Sure.
There's an increasing number of people avoiding or delaying marriage here in South Korea, and the population is aging fast. Now, according to Statistics Korea, the number of one-person households reached 6.6 million in 2020, which is up from 6.1 million in 2019. And the proportion of one-person families accounts for 31.7% of total households.
And so instead of maybe trying to fight what's clearly a trend on an incline, maybe change laws that can help better redefine the terms of traditional families and adopt what's best for the future.
Yeah. It wasn't long ago when several generations lived under one roof.
You know what? I think about it. Even in my very, very early childhood, because my grandparents, my parents, and I lived in the same household. And I think that's a pretty big family number to all house into one small space. But I mean, times have changed. I think even the grandparents and the parents of the family, the older generation want their space.
Yeah, they do.
It's not just us. It's everyone.
That's right.
Maybe that's good for preserving relationships.
For everyone's sanity.
Food for thought. I mean, there's a reason why we celebrate Seollal and Chuseok, but there are all these sort of responsibilities attached to it and stress factors anyway.
I think the world we live in, society, even the household, has become so much more complicated and complex compared to just a few years ago even.
You're right. Can we embrace those changes? That's the hope. On to our second buzzword of the day. The cities with the most billionaires in 2022. Here's your clue. Home of capitalism?
Yeah. Well, last year it was Beijing at number one. This year there is a new number one, although the city, well, it's not new to being at the top of this list.
Yeah.
It's New York City, which has taken back its crown for the first time in 6 years.
That's actually kind of surprising because I just assumed that it'd be New York through and through for a number of different reasons. But let's take a look at the logistics first. How many billionaire residents does New York City have?
Okay, the number one city with the most billionaires in the world has 107 billionaires worth over 640 billion US dollars.
You want to talk about the wealth gap? I mean, there you have it. 107 billionaires all in one city.
That's right.
New York is dense, is it not? Beijing's reign at the top of the list was rather short-lived, it turns out.
It was. There have been troubles in Chinese cities over the past year, including regulatory crackdowns by the Chinese government on industries ranging from e-commerce to even after-school tutoring.
I remember talking to you about this,
yes.
right?
New York thrived, actually. Beijing and other Chinese cities, in contrast, floundered amid these, crackdowns. Among the Chinese cities in the top 10, only Shanghai moved up one place in the rankings to number 5.
The financial hub.
Yes. Beijing fell to number 2 from number 1 last year. And Shenzhen fell to number 6. And Hangzhou, which was at number 10 last year, fell out of the top 10 list.
So many Chinese cities still remain in the top 10, though, right?
Yeah, good observation, actually.
Yeah, I was going to say. I mean, I haven't seen the other. But following New York City, do we know who's second on the Forbes list of cities with the most billionaires?
Number 2?
Yeah.
It's Beijing.
Number 2 is Beijing.
Yes, number 2 is Beijing.
All right.
Yes, the Chinese cities on this year's top 10 list have lost a total of 29 billionaires and some 375.6 billion in wealth since last year.
Okay.
Now, still, like you mentioned, China has more cities in the top 10 list than any other country in the world. The U.S. is second with New York City and San Francisco.
They only have 2 cities?
Yes, only 2 cities on
in
the list.
Top 10?
Yeah.
I think that's surprising too, isn't it? The tug of war continues, so, right? The rivalry is very much alive.
That's right.
Any other notable changes worth mentioning on this Forbes list?
Yes. Moscow experienced the biggest drop this year. The city fell from the number 4 top billionaire city in 2021 to number 7 this year.
All right. It doesn't really come as a surprise, though, with tough international sanctions in Russia and shuttered markets in the country. And frankly speaking, us not being able to exactly gauge the billionaire's worth as we speak.
That's right. Now, 34 Russians dropped off the 2022 list. 3/4 of them, in fact, are based in Moscow. The collective fortune of the billionaires living in Russia's capital is now $215 billion, which is down from $420 billion last year.
Such massive numbers.
It's
like, I can't grasp what this exactly means. What does one do with this much money?
I don't know.
You go to space. This is significant as just a decade ago, Moscow topped the list of cities with the most billionaire residents, and not too long ago.
That's right. Now, despite the shifts within the rankings in the top 10, the cities where billionaires are choosing to live remain largely the same. The only new entry to the list this year is Seoul.
Oh, is that so? I had no idea.
At number 10, replacing China's Hangzhou.
All right, so we did make the cut. So maybe I'm not underestimating Seoul's prowess. All right, so how many billionaires does Seoul City have? Is this the first time we've made the cut?
No, it's not actually.
Okay,
Seoul is back on the list for the first time since 2019.
All right.
Seoul has 38 billionaires.
Okay.
And Seoul's 3 billionaire newcomers are all self-made. This is interesting. COVID-19 testing entrepreneur Cho Young-sik is one of them. Fintech startup Toss founder Lee Seung-gon is another one. And gaming mogul Park Kwan-ho is among the 3 newcomers on the list. And tied as the city's richest residents are Kim Bum-soo, the founder of Kakao, and Lee Jae-yong, the vice chairman of Samsung Electronics. They're worth an estimated $9.1 billion each.
Again, I'm going to reiterate what I said earlier. I don't know what you do with this much money.
Yeah.
But it is really fascinating to see that a lot of self-made entrepreneurs made the list alongside the more traditional tech bars, right?
Yeah. Talking about New York City being at number 1 with 107 billionaires, the richest resident was Michael Bloomberg with $82 billion. Most of them are in the finance industry.
Okay.
Newcomers on the list include NFT billionaires, Devin Finzer Tucker and Alex Atala, who are co-founders of the blockchain startup OpenSea.
So, I mean, that's a big significant change, right? There's a reason why we talk about NFT so continuously and, well, blockchain technology at large. Can I simplify it? No. And we try to explain it so many times.
That's right. For those of you curious, the richest resident of Beijing is Zhang Yiming, who's the founder of TikTok, owner ByteDance.
There you have it. Lots of cyberspace influencers, if you ask me.
Oh, definitely.
Right? I mean, the times have changed. On to our last, which kind of ties into the story, and it's kind of funny that a really old school TV would be auctioned off, right? I mean, we've moved on to a new generation of the fanciest gadgets, and I don't know things being done online, but Korea's first locally manufactured TV is so important that it gets a full auction.
That's right. The first locally made TV model, the VD191, is set to be auctioned to the highest bidder. According to online auction house Kobe Auction, on Wednesday, the 19-inch black and white TV set, which was first released in August of 1966 by now defunct electronics manufacturer Gold Star, will open for bidding at 6 p.m. later today. Now, this TV set is recognized for its historical and rarity value. It was even designated as a cultural property back in 2013.
I suppose when things are so rare and ahead of its time, clearly, then it gets a pretty hefty price tag. So the estimation, how much is bidding starting at?
It's starting at 25 million won, or roughly 20,500 US dollars for the set. Now, when the TV set was first released in 1966, it had originally sold for 60,000 won, 6만 won, $49. I mean, the value of, currency was very different back then. But the cost for the TV set was around 5 times the then average monthly income of 12,000 won. Very expensive, but very highly in demand at the time.
I do wonder who bought it. The billionaires of the time then. This is so exciting. Yeah. But as these auctions go, it usually does result in fetching a little bit more than the desired or expected amount, right? It's going to happen soon.
That's right. Now, the auction house said the latest set is in relatively excellent condition, and its value is elevated by the rare installment of a violet-colored screensaver.
It sounds fancy. I just can't decipher what that is.
It does. The online auction will run through April 16th, so I'm sure if there's interesting news, we'll share with you here.
We'll be the first ones.
Yep.
Thanks, Erica.
Pleasure.
Have a safe day, and we'll see you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
If you're listening to our program using the podcast service, just a reminder that we do go live Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Korea Standard Time. So tune in and help us make the show more informative by giving us your input. See you bright and early on Good Morning Seoul.